Hey guys, Jake here. A tomb raider is betrayed by his boss, but a crow-shaped relic sends him back in time, giving him a second chance to take revenge. It's like solo leveling, but with the classic time travel twist of going back to rewrite the past and change your fate. Sounds pretty awesome, right? So, let's get started. The anime begins deep inside a dungeon, strewn with corpses, where a figure is locked in battle with a massive serpent. He slashes at the serpent with his sword, but barely scratches it, forcing him to dodge its attacks before going all in, only for the snake to smash him into a wall with its tail and then lunge to devour him. He narrowly escapes, leaping at the beast and channeling his energy into his blade to pierce its skull. But the sword shatters in the process, still alive. The serpent clamps down on one of his legs, and though his sword is broken, he keeps stabbing at its eye relentlessly. The creature then traps both his legs and starts smashing him against everything around them. As he begins to black out, he asks himself how Quan Tae-jun could have done this to him. And a flashback reveals the leader of an organization ordering him to complete his mission properly in exchange for a generous reward, though his smile is unsettling. Back in the present, we learn our protagonist is Seo Joo-hyun, age 38, who realizes he's about to die. But just before the serpent swallows him, a mysterious voice booms inside his head, and time itself seems to freeze. The voice asks if he can hear it. Confused, Joo-hyun replies that he's always been able to hear relics. Though he doesn't know which god this one belongs to, still, if it's really there, he begs it to destroy the snake and get him out. The voice only laughs if he honestly believes he'll survive in that body, and Joo-hyun realizes he no longer has legs. Even if the voice kills the serpent, he won't be able to walk away. It tells him he was saved by pure chance, doubts he'll last much longer, warns him of a miserable end, and laments that someone with his talent was born in the wrong era, unable to use the tricks he has up his sleeve. Joo-hyun snaps back that the voice is just talking without knowing anything about him. He never wanted to live like this either, and swears he'll do whatever it takes to kill Quan Tae-jun. With that vow, the top of the tower lights up, and the voice replies that killing him would be a waste of his talent. Light floods the area, and a crow wreathed in a golden aura appears before Joo-hyun, telling him it will give him a chance to climb to the true throne if he's capable, then channels its power into him, restoring his body and filling him with overwhelming energy. He finds himself sitting and wondering whether that crow was a hero-class relic or a divine one. Though he doubts it, before realizing his legs have regenerated and he's no longer in the dungeon, he's in a police station, and he wonders what on earth he's doing there. His thoughts are interrupted by an old woman beside him insisting the man is crazy and that he should be the one interrogated. The officer reminds them they're in an interrogation and asks for his name, but Joo-hyun, still stunned, struggles to compose himself. The officer grumbles about the suspect's lack of cooperation, calling it a sad way to start the year 2025. And hearing this, Joo-hyun is floored because 2025 was 15 years ago, meaning he's traveled back in time. Remembering the crow's promise of a chance at the true throne, he starts to smile, prompting the old woman to snap at him to answer the questions instead of laughing and muttering. Looking at her more closely, he recognizes her, and recalls shoving the punk sitting next to him after the kid tried to bother him, sending him sprawling as if he'd been waiting for the moment. The woman tells him he hit her son, who's barely in high school. He tries to figure out how to handle it, remembering that 15 years ago they demanded an outrageous settlement, forcing him to beg on his knees to get it reduced since he had no money at the time. Lost in thought, the woman loses patience and tries to slap him, but he catches her hand and tells her to knock it off since it was her son who started it, adding that they're asking for way too much money and that rich people truly are the worst. The kid feigns outrage and attacks Joo-hyun, who neutralizes him with ease, slamming him to the ground. Stunned at how light and fast he feels, Joo-hyun guesses it's because he doesn't yet have the relic sickness and has retained the combat skills he honed over 15 years. He gets excited thinking he can get rich off this, then catches himself remembering what he's just done. As the kid warns him, he'll regret it. In the next scene, Joo-hyun is thrown into a holding cell while the old woman continues arguing outside and the officers ask her to calm down. He wonders what she's even going on about. Since none of it matters, once the relics appear, chaos will reign. He recalls that in 2025, earthquakes struck all over the world and tombs emerged from the ground, containing relics pulled from myths, legends, fables, and literature. Ancient stories carry real power, and those who possess relics gain different abilities, so everyone rushed to find them. He himself unearthed the archaeologist relic and hit the jackpot, gaining information about tombs and relics, and said goodbye to his miserable old life, thinking he could finally start over. But soldiers blocked the excavation site because the company TKBM held the excavation rights. The archaeologists refused to accept it, but seeing that the soldiers wouldn't hesitate to kill them, they backed down. That was when everything changed. TKBM's president, Quan Tae-jun, along with other relic holders, banned everyone else from excavating new relics. Luckily, Joo-hyun's talent as an archaeologist got him recruited, and he ended up taking on every kind of dirty job: smuggling, theft, espionage, tomb raiding, infiltrating tombs the government had sealed off, and stealing the relics inside, which is how Quan Tae-jun built his fortune. Julian became despised by the other excavators for essentially being Quan's lackey, but he wasn't doing it for pleasure. He endured every kind of humiliation for a purpose, only to be betrayed and set up. Back in his cell, he reflects that the relics will surface again soon, and the world will fall into chaos. And although he's stronger now, that alone won't be enough. He needs capital to excavate, and wonders how to get it. Suddenly, a notification pops up in front of him titled Tomb Raider Seo Juhyun, and he wonders if he's losing his mind and hallucinating, before realizing only relics can produce something this strange, and starts yelling at the crow to show itself, asking if it's been secretly watching him. Another pop-up informs him that his basic archaeologist skills are at 1 of 4, and that he currently has the probe skill at rank F, which irritates him enough to tell the crow that his life isn't a game. But then, yet another window appears with a new quest. Activate all 4 basic archaeologist skills. He complains about now having quests too, until the guard tells him to keep quiet. Wondering if he's the only one who can see these windows, he decides to test the skill and discovers he can see perfectly within a 1-meter radius. The power of the archaeologist relic, which he still retains even without owning it. He wonders what the crow could be scheming, since relics gain nothing from making humans happy. But his thoughts are cut off by Jianwu, who turns out to be his lawyer. Leaving the police station, Jianwu tells him he had bad luck, that the kid is a repeat offender who should be the one behind bars, and tells Juhyun to relax since he'll take care of everything. Juhyun thanks him, catching Jianwu off guard, who jokingly asks if he's turned into a normal person. Now, as Jianwu laughs, Juhyun reflects that this man is Inspector Kim Jianwu, who raised him since he has no family of his own. On the way home, Juhyun asks if there have been any strange cases lately. Monster possessions, superpowers, that sort of thing, worrying Jianwu, who asks if he's really okay. But speaking of superpowers, Jianwu muses that his own wife might have some, since she always manages to find the money he tries to hide from her. Juhyun just smiles, figuring there likely aren't any relic users yet, though he knows the tombs have already appeared without anyone claiming them, giving him the perfect head start. The problem is, he has no money, and the first tombs appeared in Europe and America. His thoughts are interrupted by a group of people who seem to recognize him, asking why he isn't at work. But Juhyun only smiles, having just found his source of funding. Among the thugs is Park Kyunggate, a former mobster turned art dealer who runs a gallery with his sister, Kyungju. Juhyun recalls that back in high school he needed money and worked for them, even though they paid him next to nothing and regularly beat him. One of the thugs steps up and demands to know why he isn't answering, threatening to beat it out of him, but instead it's Juhyun who delivers the beating. The others are stunned as he announces that, as of today, he's quitting and wants his severance prepared. Park Kyunggate just laughs and tells him it's time to settle the score. Though in the end, the score favors Juhyun, who beats Park soundly. When the rest of the thugs see their boss get beaten, they all charge at once, but Juhyun takes them all down. As they panic, he smiles, knowing this is the payoff of 15 years of training, though he also realizes he still lacks raw strength and needs to finish this quickly. Furious, Park decides to punish him properly, but his subordinate warns him against drawing that sword, since it could cause serious trouble. Park tells him to shut up, and Juhyun, catching sight of the blade, wonders what Park is doing with a relic, though he figures he shouldn't overthink it, since relics do exist among ordinary people outside the tombs. Park lunges at him, and Juhyun smiles, recognizing the perfect opportunity to claim his very first relic. Juhyun easily dodges every one of the attacks, quickly disarms him, and threatens him with a dagger. The rest of the idiots panic, and once Juhyun finally takes the sword, he shows them exactly how it's used. Activating his relic lets him see straight through people as if with X-ray vision, and moving at incredible speed, almost invisibly, he stabs all of them just enough to take them out of the fight. Though the wounds are shallow, everyone panics, realizing he actually stabbed them for real, and Juhyun advises them to clear out if they don't want to end up dead. Terrified, they all comply and immediately report back to their boss that they were beaten by Juhyun. She can't believe it until her brother tells her Juhyun took all their money along with a Buddha statue. Furious, she orders them to track him down immediately. Meanwhile, as Juhyun examines the Buddha statue, he recalls an antiques dealer once telling him it was worthless junk not worth selling. Yet the dealer had seemed oddly nervous, which told him it couldn't be just a trinket. Using his probe skill, he detects a suspicious substance hidden inside the statue, cracks it open, and realizes the statue was never meant to be sold in a shop. It was really a container for what was inside. He contacts Jianwu, and after a while Jianwu shows up with the boss's brother in custody, informing her she's being arrested for drug trafficking. The woman panics, thinking she's been caught, but refuses to give up and demands to know what evidence they have right as the radio crackles with a report that 600 works of art stuffed with substances of questionable origin have been found. She panics further, wondering how they managed to trace it back to her when each piece had a different access code, until Juhyun gets on the phone and casually tells her that codes need to be changed every so often. then wishes her luck in prison, and reminds her to live decently before hanging up. Enraged, she vows she'll make him pay. Later, as Joo-hyun strolls through the streets, Ji-won texts him letting him know he'll be getting 10 million as a reward and hopes he won't blow it all. Excited that he finally has enough funds to start his journey, Joo-hyun decides to sleep and begin exploring tombs the next day, only to be startled when he realizes his old house used to stand right where he is now. But all that remains is a massive mound of earth, meaning a tomb has likely surfaced there. He's not sure if it's good or bad luck, since he's now technically homeless. On arrival, he spots a mysterious woman on the phone saying the government still doesn't know about the tombs and that the explosions will begin soon. Apparently, no one has located this particular tomb yet, giving them an edge. A mysterious man then appears in front of her, addressing her as Linda Walker. Startled, she asks what an event archaeologist is doing there, and he replies he could say the same about her since she's from the United States. This man turns out to be Kiyoshi Abe. Linda calls him nothing more than a thief, and Abe retorts that they're exactly alike, since they're both practically racing each other to claim relics first. Joo-hyun realizes he's looking at CIA schemers and clowns from the Republic of Bento, and finds it curious that Linda mentioned explosions, meaning they still don't know how to properly deal with the tomb, which tells him there are no real experts yet, giving him the perfect chance to get ahead of them. Tomb glyphs, the language of relics, appear before him, tracing themselves across the tomb's surface, and quickly helping him locate the entrance. As he starts reading them, a system message informs him he's gained a new skill called Languages at rank F, along with the title Excellent Decoder. Excited that he now only needs 2 more skills, he wastes no time forcing the entrance open, triggering a massive visual spectacle that alerts everyone nearby to the tomb's opening. Abe and Linda immediately sprint toward the entrance while Joo-hyun, already well ahead of them, has been inside the tomb for a while. Using a lighter and following the glyphs, he eventually finds a small spring. When he tosses his relic into it, the water begins to tremble, and a strange voice booms through the chamber, noting it has a visitor. A massive serpent appears before him, though it can't quite see him at first. Joo-hyun reveals his location, and the serpent remarks that he's rather clumsy for having dropped a sword, opening its mouth to ask which one he lost, the gold one or the silver one. Joo-hyun recognizes this as the tale of the golden axe and silver axe, though he privately thinks axe is a stretch. He'd have believed it if it said machete, recalling this is a famous story based on Hermes and a greedy woodcutter. Anyone could pass this test, but now the relic is going to be his. The serpent asks him to choose already. Joo-hyun apologizes, saying it's neither of the two. The serpent, sensing his honesty, reveals its actual dagger and asks if that belongs to him. Joo-hyun realizes this is a clever trap. If he claims it, he'd receive both axes plus his own sword. But there's always a catch, so he asks the serpent if he can first check whether it's really his sword. It tells him to do as he pleases, and once he takes hold of the blade, Joo-hyun immediately strikes at the massive serpent. It changes color and demands to know what he thinks he's doing, but Joo-hyun tells it to be quiet. Since he doesn't trust relics, he has no guarantee it would have handed anything over even if he passed the test. And besides, accepting those swords would have turned him into a serial killer? Startled, the serpent asks how he knows that. And Joo-hyun recalls that the real-world incident took place in the United States, where the golden and silver axes ended up controlling their owner and turning him into a serial killer. Refusing to let that happen to him, he drives his dagger into the serpent's head. It asks if he really thinks that's enough to subdue it. But Joo-hyun is only getting started, driving the blade in deeper as the serpent writhes violently across the chamber. He reflects that camaraderie, intimacy, and cooperating with a relic isn't the path he's after. Sure, you can obtain good relics through control, compatibility, or a good relationship, but that's not what he's after. He intends to dominate them, because in this new life, he will be the one in control. As the serpent keeps thrashing and orders him to get off, Joo-hyun refuses to let up. It dives into the water. But he doesn't even flinch, refusing to submit to any relic in this life. He won't rely on camaraderie. He will subjugate them. He orders the serpent to accept defeat or be destroyed, asking if it really thinks he's bluffing. The serpent panics and begs him to stop, still struggling to break free, but Joo-hyun keeps up the pressure until its scales start falling away and it dissolves into water. Joo-hyun smiles, remarking that the fool only made things harder for himself when he could have simply surrendered. He obtains the golden and silver axes, along with the title Tomb Explorer and the basic skill Excavation, meaning he now needs just one more basic skill to complete his objective. As he wonders what's left to do, another message announces he's also earned the title Relic Intimacy Expert, which boosts his control while reducing camaraderie. leaving him to wonder if that damn crow is mocking him. His thoughts are interrupted as Abe and Linda finally reach the spring, though Juhyun is already hidden without hesitation. Abe throws a relic into the lake and wonders why nothing is happening. Juhyun figures they've arrived far too late and slips away, while Linda asks Abe what exactly he's doing. He can't understand why nothing's occurring, since according to the prophet, he was supposed to throw a relic into the lake. Linda realizes that means someone in Bento holds a prophecy relic. Abe realizes he's said too much, but at that moment the entire area starts collapsing, forcing them to run for their lives. Meanwhile, back at the Kiang Gallery, the thugs' underlings complain that the police cleared everything out and left nothing behind, and now that the boss has been arrested too, they're all out of work. Realizing it's all Juhyun's fault, they decide it's time to make him pay. Sungwoo declares he's a man of his word and is going to beat him down. And the other two idiots hype him up, but the moment Juhyun calls, all that bravado evaporates. Somewhat sheepishly, Sungwoo answers and Juhyun asks what exactly he thinks he's doing. When he hesitates to respond, Juhyun asks if he wants to die. Sungwoo tries to act tough, demanding respect for his elders, but Juhyun tells him to shut up and lets him know he has a job for them. Meanwhile, Abe reports that his mission failed, but he's told that was already foreseen. He can't believe it, but he's informed that word later came through that a Korean had beaten him to it. Abe complains no one warned him, but he's reminded that he already knows how the boss operates, and he's told to stay alert and keep working hard, with a warning to be especially careful of this Korean since there's an unresolved prophecy suggesting this Korean will swallow the world whole. Meanwhile, Juhyun tells the trio of failures he needs to sneak into Midas, the world's largest secret auction being held in Las Vegas, believing it might reveal something about himself if he can get in. He orders the three of them to attend that month's auction and search for certain items, as well as for a man going by Jack Kamen, which Juhyun suspects is a fake identity for Kwon Tae-jun. Sungwoo protests, asking how on earth they're supposed to get in, but Juhyun simply tells them to figure it out, assuring them he'll pay for the job so money isn't a concern. They can either go without complaint or face a brutal beating. Knowing he's dead serious, they wisely keep their mouths shut. Sometime later, with everything ready, Juhyun prepares to set off and begin hunting relics. Before departing, he catches news of a fourth random murder that month, where the suspect behaved strangely and later tried to take his own life by setting himself on fire. Juhyun recalls there were plenty of strange cases like this, even before the tombs first appeared. Just then, Abe bumps into him and, being rather full of himself, demands an apology. But Juhyun just stands there thinking, recognizing him as the man he beat to the tomb earlier. Realizing that if Abe is here, a tomb must be about to appear nearby. He notices a relic tucked in Abe's clothes and suspects it might be the very one he's after. Ignoring him entirely, Juhyun walks on, infuriating Abe, who grabs his shoulder, giving Juhyun the perfect opening to douse him with his soda. Abe erupts, screaming that Juhyun will have to pay since the outfit is expensive. Juhyun apologizes while using the moment to lift the relic off him, also picking up his ID from the ground and asking if it's his. Abe grows nervous, wondering if his identity has been exposed, since he absolutely cannot let anyone know he's here. But suddenly, a massive earthquake strikes. The city descends into panic, the sky darkens, and Juhyun smiles, knowing he's hit the mark. A tomb is about to surface right there. He walks off, satisfied, while Abe receives a call informing him the sealing process has just begun. The prophet tells him he already knew, and also foresaw that the Korean who stole from him is very close by, though even the prophet isn't sure what that means, only warning Abe to be extremely careful around alcohol, which leaves Abe stunned, wondering if the Korean he ran into really is the one from the prophecy. Suddenly, swords start emerging from the ground. Pillars of light appear, and Juhyun realizes a tomb is about to open. He wonders where this sinister aura is coming from, but he already knows that swords covering the area can only mean the Muramasa tomb, the legendary Japanese blade, is about to surface. He recalls that in medieval Japan, the Muramasa smiths were famous for forging swords of extraordinary sharpness and quality, but father, son, and grandson alike all ended up impaled on their own blades. And this cursed Muramasa sword that wiped out its entire clan is the very relic about to emerge, one especially hostile toward humans. Status windows pop up warning Juhyun that a malevolent aura is seeping into his body and damaging his skin, meaning he needs protection, though all he feels is excitement at the chance to claim the relic. After searching for quite a while, he starts complaining that the tomb is massive and even the golden axe can't help him locate Muramasa. He figures the Japanese man must already know where it is and regrets not having followed him instead, deciding it's better to track him down first. As he moves forward, he hears people screaming and sees a student being overtaken by the malevolent aura, realizing anyone cut by it will end up just like her. Nearby, he spots a bridge trap designed to trick people into thinking it's safe to cross before suddenly vanishing beneath them, and warns everyone to get out of the lower area immediately, asking if the one who pushed them down there was Japanese. They confirm it, explaining the man sang a strange song right before a hole appeared and he shoved them into it. Ju-hyun gets excited, realizing the Japanese man can't be far. Sensing he'll need some help, he pulls out the sun and moon relic he stole earlier, explaining it's based on a rice cake and a rope, the cake the tiger demanded from the mother, and the rope that descended from the sky to save the sisters. Another status window announces he's earned a new title and unlocked a new skill. Dexterity at rank F. With all 4 basic skills now unlocked, he completes his quest, meaning he'll receive his reward once he escapes the tomb. Thrilled that everything is falling into place, he immediately leaps in to face the possessed student, and the two clash in a deadly knife fight, though Ju-hyun, brimming with confidence, easily subdues her using the rope relic, freeing her from the possession and restoring her sanity. With the situation under control, he asks everyone if they saw which way the Japanese man went. One of the men tells him he saw him cross the bridge and disappear into a cave. Excited, Ju-hyun says he'll need some help, and after seeing the girl has recovered, takes the rope from her and tells everyone he plans to beat that Japanese man senseless, but he'll need their help finding him. Meanwhile, Abe remarks that he's already disposed of the witnesses, and once he secures Muramasa, his mission will be a success, after which he'll go hunt down the Korean who humiliated him and give him a beating. He laughs like a psychopath, certain neither the blade nor that punk stand a chance against him, but after a while of fruitless searching, frustration sets in, until suddenly all the people he shoved into the hole earlier come charging at him from behind for the beating they promised him. As he takes the hits, Ju-hyun watches and realizes that bastard was the one who led them there. Ju-hyun simply calls him pathetic, a man who was right next to Muramasa and still couldn't find it, mocking the strength of the Japanese before wasting no time using the golden axe relic to scan the area and finally locate and claim Muramasa. The blade communicates with him, warning that if he wants its power, he must offer it the blood of 10 people, since it can only rebuild its body by drinking human blood. Otherwise, it will remain trapped there for all eternity. Abe, confused, wonders who Ju-hyun is even talking to, while Ju-hyun flatly refuses to give Muramasa the blood of 10 people. Muramasa threatens to drown him within its domain, but Ju-hyun grabs hold of it forcefully and begins suppressing it, ordering it to gather its scattered fragments. Outraged, Muramasa demands to know how a mere human dares treat it this way, but despite all its protests, Ju-hyun ultimately dominates it, recovering all its fragments and claiming its power for himself. Meanwhile, Abe watches in frustration as, with the situation now under control, people begin climbing out through the rope. Abe tries to play innocent and sneak out unnoticed, but Ju-hyun catches him and tells him he's not going anywhere. Abe tries to bargain, offering to help him find more relics and even hand over the Chronicle of the Future, but Ju-hyun points out the Chronicle only works for its actual owner. Abe then mentions there's a company that could fix that problem, called TKBM, and asks if Ju-hyun knows it. Surprised and visibly irritated, Ju-hyun says he knows it very well indeed, then drives a knee into Abe's stomach, knocking him out cold before climbing out with the rope, ignoring Abe's earlier offer to call in his precious TKBM for help. Instead, his plan is to let Abe die down there. He orders the tomb sealed, and it immediately begins collapsing, crushing Abe inside. That night, news outlets report on the mysterious tomb, the swords that emerged from the ground and walls, the 50 people trapped by the earthquake, and the mysterious Japanese man who claimed to belong to Japan's self-defense forces and pushed people into a pit. Because of the incident, the Korean government is demanding answers from Japan, while China and Russia have condemned Japan's actions. Japan's high command is furious as every news outlet covers the incident, and they reprimand the officer in charge of the operation, who explains to his superior that an unexpected variable appeared, the Korean the prophecy had mentioned. His boss keeps berating him regardless, since handling that variable was exactly his job. After all, he is Mori, head of the excavation team. Mori apologizes, but points out the situation has changed since the Chronicle of the Future can now be used to track the Korean down. His boss reminds him the Chronicle can only track people its owner has actually met. Mori explains that Abe had already been marked by the Chronicle and had met the Korean, so even if it isn't fully precise, they should still be able to track him. He asks for one more chance, though his boss remains furious. Meanwhile, Ju-hyun examines his injured hand, remarking that this is the downside of forcing relics into submission. The more powerful a relic is, the harder it resists, and if he keeps pushing like this, his body won't hold up much longer. Just then, conveniently, his mission reward arrives. A status window informs him that before receiving it, he must choose between two paths, domination or affinity. Naturally, Ju-hyun chooses domination, and the reward is delivered. When nothing seems to appear, he searches everywhere, eventually finding a small pill tucked in his pocket. Realizing it's a relic, he wonders whether he should actually eat it. Not entirely sure, but figuring that if it kills him, so be it, he throws caution to the wind and swallows it. His body immediately starts regenerating, and the system informs him he successfully resisted and neutralized the relic's poison. unlocking the immunity skill. Stunned at how incredible that is, he lies down on his bed, wondering what that crow actually wants from him. Is it helping him because it benefits somehow, or for some other reason? Just then, a notification arrives announcing he's been marked by an S-rank relic and that his future is being read. Ju-hyun realizes someone is using the Chronicle of the Future on him and recalls that the Chronicle is a book of prophecies written by the Japanese statesman Taishi Shotoku. Unlike other relics, it never created its own tomb. Instead, it chose its owner, a woman named Yuka Sasaki. The moment the Japanese government realized this, they wasted no time pouring resources into finding her. Eager to use the Chronicle's power for their excavation efforts, and although this might look like a happy ending on the surface, it really isn't. Later, aboard a plane, Ju-hyun reflects that Sasaki was never a good student, and since the prophecies were written in archaic Japanese, she couldn't read them. She ended up murdered by a higher-ranked relic user who then took the Chronicle for himself. Meanwhile, at Yuka's house, she's told it's time to read the Chronicle of the Future, so she heads to her room to read it, complaining as always about how difficult it is to decipher. Her handler tells her that if she doesn't recognize a character, she can simply copy it exactly as she sees it, and he'll help translate it. But suddenly Yuka starts screaming because the prophecy says she's going to die, with 2 entire pages dedicated to that very message. Meanwhile, we cut to Ju-hyun casually eating sushi, and opening a notebook reveals that he was the one who wrote those 2 pages predicting Sasaki's death. He wonders when they'll show up, confident the Chronicle would never overlook a prophecy cursing its own owner, certain this would grab their attention, and wonders what they're waiting for. Outside her room, agents are shown standing ready to act, telling Sasaki not to be nervous though. She asks how she's supposed to stay calm when a man wants to kill her. They advise her to simply walk in and look him in the eyes, since that will let her fully mark him, especially since he has no idea what she looks like. They also promise to protect her if anything goes wrong. Yuka decides to trust them and enters the room. But upon seeing Ju-hyun's striking face, she's instantly smitten. He notices the owner of the Chronicle of the Future has an interesting aura, and without wasting time draws his sword as the squad monitoring everything orders Sasaki pulled out immediately and demands swift action. But suddenly the door slams shut, stunning everyone. Yuka starts speaking in Japanese, which Ju-hyun doesn't understand at all, so she starts typing it into her phone instead. Once he reads it, he realizes the girl has fallen for him and wants him to become her friend, or better yet, her boyfriend. Ju-hyun concludes this girl isn't quite right in the head, but obviously has no intention of passing up this opportunity. So he plays along. After getting rid of the squad meant to protect Yuka, he tells her they can now leave together for their date. A little while later, as they walk through the streets, Ju-hyun mentions he can't believe the military would put her on the front lines. Yuka asks how he knows that, and he simply says he knows a thing or two. Lots of little things. And as he pets her head, she blushes and falls head over heels for him. Ju-hyun proposes putting the 2 of them in a tricky spot together, and as they keep walking, she thinks he doesn't seem like a bad guy at all. Besides, she's already looked into his eyes and can read his future though. She suddenly remembers she left the book at home. A bit later, arriving at a cafe, Ju-hyun threatens her with his sword. She panics, but he tells her to stay quiet and hand over her phone. Once she does, he smashes it, and once inside, he lets her know he knows exactly who she is. He hands her his notebook and orders her to copy down every prophecy she can recall, so their date can begin. She protests that this isn't a date at all, and that she left her notebook at home anyway. Ju-hyun tells her not to be silly and orders her to touch the tattoo on her arm and say her own name, since that will summon the notebook to her. She tries it, and it actually works, leaving her stunned since she didn't even know she could do that. Without wasting time, Ju-hyun orders her to start writing down every single prophecy about her future. She complies, though. After a while, she starts slowing down. Ju-hyun tells her to write faster, but she says her arm hurts and offers to just hand over the book if he wants it so badly. Begging him to let her go, he refuses and orders her to keep writing. The girl laments ever letting herself be fooled by such a handsome face. Just then, Ju-hyun hears a noise and realizes the military has arrived to cause trouble. So he prepares to finish his plan. He draws his sword and suddenly strikes at the book. The relic demands to know what he thinks he's doing, but Ju-hyun gradually destroys it with Muramasa, since the book can't simply be stolen, and trying to dominate an S-rank relic by force would cause far more damage than just to one arm. His best option is to eliminate the obstacle entirely. As the book is destroyed, Sasaki collapses unconscious, while Ju-hyun remarks that what he did was for her own good. A status window informs him he's earned the title Control Enhancement, and having destroyed an S-rank relic, he's also unlocked the existence of Titan Hunter, though he's interrupted by the soldiers who panic at the sight of the destroyed book. Their commander orders his immediate execution, but Ju-hyun, brimming with confidence, just laughs in their faces and tosses out the dumpling relic, a common C-rank edible relic that immediately releases an irresistible aroma, scrambling the soldiers' senses as they become entranced by the smell, drooling as they stare at it. The commander orders them to back off, But it isn't long before they start fighting each other over the dumpling, giving Ju-hyun the perfect chance to calmly slip away. Now on the plane, he reads through the prophecies Sasaki wrote for him and finds the one he was looking for, the Great Sepulchrification. The incident where tombs covered the entire world, and it was then that countless relics scattered everywhere. Thanks to the prophecies, he learns that in January, an opportunity will arise in the underground Garden of Desire, where the calamity that will plunge the world into chaos will begin, accompanied by the god who best understands its own desires. Ju-hyun figures the prophecy is referring to Midas, the underground auction in Las Vegas, and that's where he'll find that bastard. Arriving in Las Vegas, he meets with his new subordinate, who hands over all the information he managed to gather. Ju-hyun notices the intel is solid since Kwon Tae-jun's name is clearly on the list, and if he's going to be in Las Vegas, it must mean a high-quality relic will be presented at the auction. He looks over the items up for auction, but notices none of them are divine class, leaving him wondering what exactly the prophecy meant, though there are still a few items worth bidding on. His subordinate asks how he plans to compete in an auction that starts in the billions, and Ju-hyun says that's the easy part. After all, they're in Las Vegas, the best place in the world to make a fortune. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure is informed that a single individual managed to destroy the Chronicle of the Future and escape Japan's soldiers. He's asked whether they should eliminate him, but he replies that if one person managed all that alone, it would be far better to recruit him instead. Meanwhile, Ju-hyun is busy racking up a fortune at the slot machines. His subordinates wonder what kind of trick he's using as he hits the jackpot on every single machine he touches, exciting the crowd around him, though as expected, the house never loses, and one of the security staff approaches to search him, since it's the first time so many consecutive jackpots have hit that casino. Ju-hyun lets himself be searched, and the guard asks about his amulet. Ju-hyun explains, it's just a keychain he bought as a souvenir, which also doubles as a knife. The guard apologizes and lets him go, while Ju-hyun privately smiles, knowing it's actually the golden axe in disguise and he's been using its wealth-attracting power the whole time. Though the axe itself grumbles about how embarrassed it is to be stuck in that form, he pockets it and tells his subordinates it's time to move on. As they walk, he notices someone thoroughly detestable, Siwoo, and if Siwoo is there, that means Tae-jun is nearby too. Siwoo is clearing the way for his master, and seeing him fills Ju-hyun with rage as he remembers everything he and his team suffered because of him. Though back then, Tae-jun didn't even know who he was, which works out perfectly, since it means Ju-hyun can claim every top relic at this auction for himself. Just then, the blonde subordinate from earlier tells Ju-hyun something strange is happening, with his bag checking it. They find the silver axe warning that something is approaching. Ju-hyun grows uneasy since the golden axe detects fortune, but the silver axe detects threats. Suddenly, people all around begin arguing, and everyone in the room starts losing money one way or another. Ju-hyun wonders what on earth is happening. Some investors are losing money as stocks crash, others are getting robbed outright. It's chaos everywhere. Ju-hyun quickly realizes what's causing it and panics upon spotting her in the room, Irene Holton, the youngest daughter of the Holton conglomerate. He recalls that in the past, those who held divine relics carried titles like the Monarch of Fate, the Monarch of Conquest, the Monarch of Abundance, and others, but the one who wielded the most terrifying power of all was Irene Holton, known as the Monarch of Ruin. Anyone who got close to her suffered misfortune, whether losing their fortune or falling gravely ill. Knowing full well it's best to stay far away from her, he tells the group they need to leave immediately, but Irene spots him and rushes over, calling out his name. Ju-hyun panics and quickens his pace. Though it doesn't help, when he tries to open a door, he gets shocked by static electricity. Status windows immediately warn him that his relics are taking a serious hit, suffering irreparable damage. Worried, he tries to shake off Irene as she grabs his arm, but he pulls away. She excitedly asks him to give her just a moment, but the status windows keep warning him that a monstrous aura is worsening the condition of his relics, dealing them potentially lethal damage. He pulls his hands free, and Irene apologizes. Ju-hyun's subordinates wonder what's going on with him, while Irene, somewhat embarrassed, asks if he's really the one behind all those consecutive jackpots. His excited subordinates confirm it, and Irene admits she was looking for him so he could teach her his secret. Ju-hyun tells her she has the wrong person while the blonde subordinate scolds him for being an idiot. Insisting you can't just reject a woman like that, he offers to talk to her himself instead. But the moment he approaches and starts flattering her, he too gets hit by the effects of her relic, along with everyone else nearby. Worried, Irene begs Ju-hyun to please just listen to her. He tries to walk away, but her ruin won't let him escape so easily. She asks if he's alright, and when he tells her she's the one causing it, instead of getting upset, she admits that's exactly the problem. Everyone around her ends up suffering misfortune, which is precisely why she wants to change her luck and make everyone around her happy. Ju-hyun studies her surprise, since this isn't the Irene he remembers, the one who once plunged the world into chaos. She continues pleading for him to share his secret to good luck, promising to pay whatever he asks. He's caught off guard since she's nothing like he imagined. And just then, a status window informs him his resistance has improved, allowing him to now withstand half the effect of other people's relic. He smiles, delighted, realizing there's no need to avoid her after all. If anything, staying close to her will keep strengthening his resistance, which works out perfectly, since having her nearby means his rivals at the auction will suffer one misfortune after another. He tells her he's currently quite busy with something important, and though he'd love to discuss the terms of a contract in exchange for revealing his secrets, he unfortunately has an auction to attend. Irene looks disappointed, but Joo-hyun invites her to come along, and she happily agrees, while his subordinates, meanwhile, a while later at the auction, Joo-hyun smiles, since thanks to Irene, most of the other bidders have already dropped out after suffering various misfortunes. He even hears that one of Kwon Tae-jun's factories caught fire. Despite that, Tae-jun hasn't left, which means there must be some relic keeping him anchored there. As the auction continues, Joo-hyun watches Irene and thinks she's nothing like the woman he remembers. She also doesn't seem to know anything about relics, which suggests the divine relic likely attached itself to her without her consent. Perhaps Irene was originally a good person, and the relic of ruin is what wrecked her life and twisted her into the unstable person she became. Irene interrupts his thoughts, saying how grateful she is that he agreed to listen to her, and that she feels much better having finally told someone. He tells her he didn't really do anything, but just then, status windows warn him that a person's mood strengthens their relic's aura, and since Irene is now in good spirits, it triggers a sudden earthquake. Everyone in the room shudders, while the Golden Axe begs Joo-hyun to get her under control before it splits in two. Realizing the calamities intensify the happier its owner becomes, Joo-hyun quickly moves to manage the situation, telling Irene to calm down since they haven't even made a deal yet. A bit embarrassed, she apologizes for causing trouble again, and as her mood dips slightly, her relic's effects return to normal. The auction proceeds smoothly again, though some participants start arguing among themselves, which works out great for Joo-hyun, since the power of the ruin relic is steadily eroding his rival's sanity, giving him the perfect opening to eliminate the competition. He tells Irene there's no reason for her to feel sad, since maybe she really can bring people happiness, and offers to discuss their deal, which immediately lifts her spirits again. Joo-hyun starts talking to her as though her problem has an easy fix, all while using her improving mood to make his rivals lose their composure, obsessing over worthless junk lots. Despite Irene's immense power, Tae-jun keeps bidding steadily without letting her influence throw him off, proving he has remarkable self-control, though he also uses her effect to bait Tae-jun into overspending on ridiculous items. In the end, he walks away with the Hammurabi Code, Shakespeare's quill, and Marie Antoinette's necklace, though he's disappointed nothing divine came up for auction despite the prophecy promising there would be. Just then, the auctioneer suddenly announces an item that wasn't listed in the catalog, a very special relic, a young mystical almond tree. Tae-jun smiles, clearly having been waiting for exactly this moment, while Joo-hyun feels a rush of excitement, determined to do whatever it takes to claim the plant of eternal youth for himself. Without hesitating for a second, Joo-hyun places the first bid, but Tae-jun counters immediately. Joo-hyun realizes Tae-jun noticed it too, and recalls that the legendary emperor of ancient Dahlia sought immortality, and this is the very tree of eternal youth he desperately searched for. Before Joo-hyun returned to the past, the relics had ravaged his body, leaving him able to survive only by consuming the fruit of this exact plant, which was in Kwon's possession at the time. He'd had to carry out plenty of dirty work in exchange for that fruit, since his life literally depended on it. Now he understands Tae-jun got it at this very auction, and if he loses it here, that same future will repeat itself, so it has to be his, no matter what. The auctioneer then mentions that the plant is rumored to boost virility, and Joo-hyun gets embarrassed and irritated, thinking these people are just ignorant. Since the plant is no aphrodisiac, but now that he's bidding on it, everyone will assume he has performance issues. The bidding opens at $200,000 and quickly climbs to $500,000, then $500,005, with Joo-hyun unable to believe these fools genuinely think it's some kind of aphrodisiac. Kwon offers a huge sum, but others keep pushing back with 15, 20, and 22 million, so he calmly raises it to 40 million. The other bidders, desperate not to miss their shot at working again, push it to 45 and then 50 million. Joo-hyun starts to panic, not expecting the bidding to spiral this fast, and nearly has a heart attack when Kwon offers 100 million, leaving him no choice but to turn to Irene, who casually offers 150 million. Everyone in the room is stunned. Kwon, confused about who this woman even is, refuses to lose the plant and bids 160. But Irene, practically swimming in money, counters with 200, clearly just bidding for fun at this point. Assistant urges to stop and explains that this woman is Irene Holton. Kwon doesn't care and bids 220. Siwoo tells him to calm down, since there's no outbidding a Holton, and Irene proves it by offering 300 million. Kwon, refusing to back down, is about to bid past 300 when Siwoo stops him before he does something reckless, and in the end Irene wins the plant. A little later, they're told to wait while everything is prepared, and Joo-hyun thanks Irene, well aware he just made her spend a fortune. She tells him not to worry about it. After all, he's going to help her with her problem by sharing some of his good luck. Joo-hyun corrects her, however revealing he won't be giving her anything. She's the one who'll be giving something to him. He asks if she's ever noticed something strange following her around, and asks her to hand it over so she can stop spreading misfortune, thinking to himself, this will kill two birds with one stone. He'll get a divine relic and solve Irene's problem at the same time. But she tells him she hasn't noticed anything following her. Juhyun asks if a tattoo ever suddenly appeared on her, and from her reaction he realizes she's possessed. Since tattoos are markers of possession-type relics, the same as Yuka's, which is proof of her pact with the Chronicle of the Future. Unlike consumable relics, possession-type relics can only be used by their actual owner. A bit embarrassed, Irene shows him a photo of her tattoo, and after examining it closely, he realizes it's a parasitic relic. Relics that latch onto their owner's body are extremely rare, meaning stealing that power will be far more difficult than he thought. He tells Irene he assumed this would be an easy fix, but it isn't. Still, he promises to find a solution for her little by little. He gives her his phone number and assures her he has no intention of running off. Irene sighs, but thanks him anyway. While he privately thinks that even if he can't claim her power outright, at least he can keep her close. Meanwhile, the staff handling the auction items inform them that aside from the almond tree, the rest of the one items can be taken home once paid for, and ask if they'd like transport arranged. Juhyun steps aside and tries calling someone, but the call won't connect. Fearing the worst, he's proven right. The blonde kid and the others are shown fleeing with all the money, thinking they're now rich and free of worries. Just then, the silver axe nearly takes one of their heads off. Panicking, they call out to Juhyun, who simply tells them to shut up and announces it's time for their punishment. He holds up a glowing stone in his hand and a pillar rises behind him. Juhyun explains this is the code created by Hammurabi, king of Babylon, famous for the phrase, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a retaliation relic that reflects back whatever is done to its bearer. He happened to win it at that same auction and figures this is the perfect chance to test it out, invoking an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a betrayal for a betrayal. He activates the code of Hammurabi, instantly trapping all three of them. Normally, the relic repels attacks, but as a legal code, it can also restrict certain actions. A status window confirms the relic will now monitor its target. The three are freed to move again, confused about what just happened, until Juhyun explains that as long as they don't betray him, nothing will happen. But if they do, they'll end up torn apart. With that settled, he doubts they'll try betraying him again anytime soon. Back at the hotel, it's time to deal with the almond tree, and Juhyun assigns the group the job of harvesting its fruit, ordering them to keep it potted since the stubborn thing won't stop talking. As the group starts cleaning it, he notices the tree relaxing, meaning the blonde kid has surprisingly strong camaraderie with it. He recalls that the day before he himself tried to form a pact with the tree, only to be rejected and fail outright, and now realizes the tree favors people with high camaraderie, making those three useless kids perfect caretakers for it. Just then, Juhyun gets a call, and recognizing the number, understands what it means someone's already begun investigating him. He answers to find it's Kwon Tae-jun himself, who introduces himself. Juhyun plays along and asks what he wants. Kwon gets straight to the point, revealing he knows Juhyun holds the tree Irene bid so hard for, and wants to negotiate a deal. Juhyun tells him he's not interested and hangs up. Right after, Siwoo approaches and offers to personally retrieve the tree for Kwon as long as he's allowed to use the company's relics. If granted permission, he's confident he'll get the tree easily, assuming Juhyun is just an ordinary man. Later, at a bar, Juhyun notices the golden axe has been reacting for several days now, meaning someone has started tracking him down, though he's annoyed it's taking them this long. Just then, Siwoo shows up walking straight toward him. Juhyun ignores him, and as Siwoo gets closer, Juhyun notices he's brought relics with him, exactly what he was hoping for. Irritated at being ignored, Siwoo gets aggressive, but Juhyun elbows him hard in the stomach, then apologizes, claiming he was startled by Siwoo's sudden shouting. Siwoo tells him to cut the act, since he'd already recognized him earlier, and Juhyun replies that yes, now he remembers. Siwoo's the nobody who used to hover beside the president. Bit by bit, he pushes Siwoo into losing his composure, exactly what he wanted, since losing control temporarily weakens a person's relic control. Juhyun knows him well despite his confident exterior. Siwoo is riddled with insecurities, and it doesn't take much to rattle him into losing control, which cripples his ability to use high-level relics. As Juhyun keeps taunting him, Siwoo finally lashes out with one of his relics. But nothing happens. Juhyun quickly slams him against the counter, telling him that with weakened control, using relics is simply impossible. Startled that Juhyun knows this much about relics, Juhyun wastes no time snatching it from him and restraining his movements. He notices the relic is a control type, and sensing Juhyun's own exceptionally high control, it allows him to use it, which he does without hesitation. Siwoo panics as the relic's power takes hold, while Ju-hyun explains the powder is zombie powder from a voodoo priest, an A-rank possession relic that strips anyone who touches or inhales it of their sanity temporarily. With Siwoo out of commission, Ju-hyun knows he'll be free from pursuit for a while. Sometime later, Kwon is shown furious, discovering his right-hand man locked in a cell with no trace of consciousness left. Back at his office, he orders the rest of his men to forget about that failure and focus on recovering the stolen relics, but they inform him that when they found Siwoo, he had nothing on him at all. Enraged, Kwon orders his lawyer, Lee Jina, summoned immediately, already realizing he'll need to adjust his plans. Meanwhile, at the airport, the blonde kid complains to Ju-hyun about being forced to carry everything, though Ju-hyun tells him to just deal with it, privately thinking he already had solid relics, but now he's amassed even more between the auction wins and what he stole from Siwoo. More than enough to kickstart his plan and gather many more. Lee Jina approaches him directly, asking to speak privately, where she reveals the president deeply respects his abilities. That's why she's come to offer him a contract with the archaeology department, with an initial payment of 100 million plus a monthly salary. She assures him they won't interfere in his personal life so long as he remains loyal to TKBM. Ju-hyun points out that this is essentially a slavery contract. The lawyer warns him to watch his words carefully, since he did steal from Siwoo, and the president could easily report him, making it very clear they have the power to erase any small operation from existence, and that his subordinates could die of unknown causes, the same fate awaiting him. Ju-hyun asks if she's essentially saying he has to join them or die. Then, staring her down seriously, advises her to choose her enemies more carefully, or she might be the one who vanishes without a trace, pulling out the zombie powder as a warning. She just smiles, confident he can't use a relic with so many people around. Ju-hyun uncorks the bottle. She reacts, instantly attacking him with another relic. But he activates the Code of Hammurabi, reflecting her attack back at her with an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a water cannon for a water cannon. Jina takes the full blast, and everyone nearby is stunned by the spectacle, assuming it's some kind of magic show. Ju-hyun approaches Jina and tells her that now that they have an audience, it's time to finish this. She screams desperately, and in the next scene, airport security is shown scrambling after reports of a violent woman causing chaos in the cafe. Kwon Tae-jun, also at the airport, grows increasingly frustrated as he processes the situation. Ju-hyun, meanwhile, admires his newest acquisition, a B-rank relic with 50 uses remaining, but suddenly hears a voice addressing him as human, warning him to get out of there immediately because he's in danger. He wonders if it's the crow. Though the blonde kid asks what he's muttering about while staring up at the sky, Ju-hyun smiles, realizing the others can't hear it, and the voice, apparently the crow, orders him to move quickly to its location. Irritated, he snaps that relics don't get to give him orders and complains that it sent him back in time without explaining anything. Ju-hyun decides to ignore it, and the crow warns he'll regret it. Just then, Kwon approaches him directly, and Ju-hyun's subordinates ask if that's really the famous Kwon Tae-jun. He confirms it and tells them to stay quiet. And suddenly the blonde kid and everyone else start writhing in intense pain. Ju-hyun finally understands what the crow was warning him about, while Kwon simply smiles. Ju-hyun strikes at him quickly, warning him not to use mind control on humans. He intensifies the pain, hitting Ju-hyun's subordinates. Suddenly, though, his power dissipates. Kwon wonders what's happening, since his relic has never stopped working like this before, until Ju-hyun asks if this is what he was looking for, revealing he's stolen the relic right out from under him. He realizes it's an S-rank divine relic, though unfortunately his control still isn't strong enough to fully use it. The problem is, Kwon still retains his own power, and he's delighted to see Ju-hyun might actually entertain him for a while. Ju-hyun grows uneasy, since Kwon's subjugation relic bends the opponent's mind, and like Irene's, it's parasitic. He has no idea where on Kwon's body it's hidden. On top of that, the bastard also carries an armor-type relic. Ju-hyun tries reasoning with him, asking if he's not worried about people discovering relics exist, but makes it clear that while covering this up will be difficult, letting Kwon live will cause far more problems. Kwon quickly uses his power to subjugate him, and Ju-hyun ends up forced to his knees before him. Just then, the crow relic makes its appearance, warning Kwon to hold back that power, since a relentless jackal and hound rest nearby, and if he doesn't restrain himself and wakes them, it will cause a massive disaster. Kwon ignores the warning entirely, thrilled at how powerful this relic looks, and decides to dispose of the kids quickly so he can claim it for himself. Unfortunately for him, his surge of power ends up waking exactly what it shouldn't have. The sky turns blood red, and status windows warn Ju-hyun that extremely powerful relics are about to trigger a catastrophe and are already destroying his own. The airport begins collapsing as a massive sepulchrification begins. Pyramids and sphinxes emerge from the ground. Julian tells the kids they're now trapped there because of Quan, who still doesn't seem to understand what's happening. Julian realizes countless sepulchrifications are occurring worldwide simultaneously, something he never anticipated. Suddenly, Seth appears before them, demanding to know who they are. Recognizing him, Julian understands this is the relic of Seth, one of the 9 principal Egyptian gods. And alongside him, the relic of Anubis appears, as well as the relic of Osiris, in the form of a necklace. Seeing 3 god-tier relics together, he finally understands how the tombs swallowed the entire world. Anubis finds it hard to believe a mere human could have awakened them. But Seth snaps at him to stop overthinking it, insisting it was pure coincidence, though he notices a strange, oddly familiar scent coming from Julian. Already in a foul mood, Seth decides it'd be simplest to just kill them all and see if that improves things. Worried, Julian quickly activates his code, daring Seth to hit him with his strongest attack if he dares. Seth just laughs, telling him that's an insultingly low bar compared to their level, and furiously unleashes a powerful attack, but Julian reflects it right back, reducing Seth to a whimpering pup. Seth can't believe it, while Juhyun warns him not to underestimate someone just because of their apparent level. Seth quickly realizes this human carries the same scent as the crow, confirmed by that very attack. Osiris asks if he means the traitor who allied himself with humans, but Seth insists that crow is supposed to be sealed away, so his nose must be playing tricks on him. Just then, Anubis intervenes, ordering them to be quiet, and declares he'll test this human personally to measure his arrogance. Julian is transported to a kind of scale, where Anubis welcomes him to his judgment. Julian smiles, having luckily spoken beforehand with the actual owner of the Anubis relic, recalling that he'd need to answer a series of questions, and as he remembers it, the answer to every single one should be yes. Anubis confirms exactly that, explaining he'll ask 42 questions, all requiring an honest yes, and any lie will come at a steep price. The first question asks if he can honestly claim he's never stolen anything. Juhyun panics, unsure how to answer, since he's stolen more times than he can count. Unable to answer, Anubis moves to the next question, asking if he's never lied. Juhyun panics again, realizing he's essentially done everything being asked. And it's then he recalls that the original owner of the Anubis relic was just a small child, meaning he passed the test simply because he hadn't committed any real crimes yet. Anubis declares Juhyun guilty for failing to answer, proclaiming all humans to be sinners and hurls him straight into hell, watching what look like zombies closing in on him, but he has no intention of giving up, grabbing a bone off the ground and beating down every zombie in reach. Unfortunately, he eventually finds himself cornered, but refuses to die devoured by these things. At the last second, the crow reappears, remarking it's been a long time since it lent him its power directly, letting him know he should be grateful. Meanwhile, outside that space, the kids watch a mysterious sphere, wondering what's happening inside it. Seth, for his part, wonders why Anubis is taking so long, until suddenly the sphere begins to crack. He's never seen anything like it before. Assuming this means the humans somehow passed the trial, he thinks it should be impossible, but once Juhyun emerges, they see he's now accompanied by that traitorous crow. Back in the present, Osiris asks Anubis what exactly happened, though Anubis is completely out of commission. Furious, Seth demands to know how the crow escaped its seal, making it clear they haven't forgotten how it once betrayed its own kind to side with humans, attacking them and consuming their power. Juhyun asks the crow if that's true, but it simply ignores him. Seth decides to go all out, summoning his mummies, while the crow tells Juhyun it can't help him anymore. Here, Juhyun says he already figured as much, making it clear he doesn't want its help anyway. The crow asks why he's so calm about it, and Juhyun replies, it's because here, he's free to use his power however he wants. The crow bursts out laughing and leaves, while Juhyun charges into the mummies, tearing through them at incredible speed. The problem is, there are simply too many, but he keeps dodging and striking regardless. Osiris remarks that this human thinks he's better than everyone, but Seth points out it won't matter how good he is, since the dead are limitless. Realizing this fight could go on forever at this rate, Juhyun decides he needs to find their leader instead. He switches relics, pulling out the Egyptian gravedigger's knife, and being an Egyptian relic himself, asks if it can sense anything. The knife tells him it can feel Lord Anubis very close by, and notices his power is growing. Juhyun manipulates it into helping him track down its master, and the blade agrees, kicking off round 2 by cutting down every mummy in their path. Meanwhile, Anubis wakes up, confused about what's happening. Osiris explains they had no choice but to use their full power, since the relic-devouring crow had appeared. Anubis is shocked. since it was they themselves who originally sealed it away. Realizing they have no time to lose, they need to warn the other gods, but unfortunately for them, Juhyun manages to track them down first. He takes down Seth, then Osiris, and once he has Anubis cornered, makes it very clear that the earlier trial doesn't count, so they'll be repeating it. Anubis tells him not to be ridiculous, since the outcome will be identical, but Juhyun assures him that this time he'll pass. Anubis drags him back into the trial space, though weakened this time. Just as he's about to ask the first question, Juhyun grabs him by the throat and informs him that he'll be asking the questions he's told to ask instead. Anubis refuses at first, but after a brief beating, gives in. The first question is whether he's ever stolen anything, but since Anubis doesn't answer with the right attitude, Juhyun teaches him another lesson, making it clear he either cooperates or gets destroyed. Meanwhile, outside the trial, the kids watch anxiously. Suddenly, the Egyptian structures begin vanishing, and Kwon panics, wondering if Juhyun actually sees control of the Anubis relic. Sure enough, Juhyun emerges from the trial in full command of it. Status windows inform him that having subdued a divine Egyptian relic, his control over Egyptian relics has increased, and the Anubis relic also boosts his resistance against death-type relics. He also earns the title, Dishonest Archaeologist, which lowers his camaraderie but strengthens his tomb raiding abilities. As he reviews his new stats, Kwon approaches him, apologizing for his earlier rudeness and proposing they work together. He points out that, as Juhyun has clearly seen, the world is about to change, and someone with his talent has enormous potential, promising that if he joins TKBM, he as president will give him all the support he could ever need. But watching Kwon smile like that, Juhyun can no longer stand it, and finally claims his revenge, slitting Kwon's throat right in front of his stunned subordinates. Taejun simply smiles with confidence and uses his relic's power to reattach his head to his body, remarking that he'd already expected that move. Even so, he compliments Juhyun on being so fast and decisive, and Juhyun realizes Taejun's body closely resembles that of the Greek warrior Achilles. And just as Achilles had a weak point at his heel, Taejun should have one too, though Juhyun has no idea where it might be. Taejun starts mocking him, insisting there's simply no way he can win this fight. But Juhyun still isn't convinced. He quickly channels the power of the Muramasa sword and lunges at Taejun, slashing his entire body over and over. But he puts so much power into the blade that the sword ends up shattered. Even after taking that many hits, Taejun doesn't die. Instead, he rises into the air wrapped in an intense purple glow. Juhyun immediately realizes the relic has completely taken over his body. Taejun fires a burst of energy at Juhyun, so Juhyun summons the Hammurabi stone and tries to absorb the attack. But it's so powerful that even the Hammurabi stone starts to crack. Wanting to end this quickly, Juhyun redirects the attack straight back at Taejun, triggering a massive explosion. Once the smoke clears, Taejun is left slumped against a wall. Juhyun approaches him, furious to see the man is still breathing. After everything, he tries to summon Muramasa's power to finish him off, but the sword is already too damaged to function. With his relics in such poor shape, Juhyun figures Taejun no longer poses much of a threat, so he decides to stop worrying about him for now. He calls Irene and asks if she knows a man named Yu Jeha. Shortly after, he meets up with Irene and is stunned when she tells him Yu is already dead. She explains that her brother is a serious art collector, and a few months ago, Yu sold him a forgery. She says she remembers it like it was yesterday. Her brother had bought a very famous painting that turned out to be fake, and he and his friends chased Yu down by car, but Yu lost control of his own vehicle, crashed through a guardrail, and went off the edge of a cliff. Juhyun genuinely didn't expect this. He'd only ever thought of Yu as a restorer. Relics are objects that can wear down or break in various ways, and when that happens, people who own restoration-type relics are needed to repair them. These people are known as restorers. In the past, Yu was part of his group, and was known as the King of Fraud. Juhyun realizes how serious this problem is, since without Yu, he has no way to repair Muramasa. But then he remembers that he and Yu are supposed to cross paths again in about 5 years, so he doubts the man is actually dead. The scene shifts to Taejun, lying in a hospital bed, wrapped in thick bandages, watching a news report and furious that knowledge of relics has now gone public. His associate Edward points out that this is Taejun's own fault for summoning that tomb in the first place, but Taejun insists it was just an accident. Edward is genuinely stunned to learn it was a young man who managed to injure Taejun that badly. Setting that aside, Edward stands and tells Taejun he'll soon put him in touch with a restorer. So for now, he should focus on resting. As he leaves, Edward immediately calls Yu, who picks up right away and asks if he has work for him. Edward confirms he does, saying he actually has a high-paying client lined up for him. After that, Julian and his subordinates walk into an art gallery and approach the receptionist. Julian drops his bag full of relics onto the counter and asks her to restore them. At first, the receptionist pretends not to know what he means by relics, but the blonde kid quickly tells her to drop the act since they clearly know all about relics and what they can do. Julian tells him to be quiet, and the two argue for a bit. Meanwhile, the receptionist takes a quick peek inside the bag and is startled to see they brought a large number of high-grade relics. Julian notices she clearly recognizes them as relics. He tells her he heard this place can restore them and even promises to keep everything they do completely confidential. This time, the receptionist agrees to help. She then steps into the staff-only room to make a phone call. Julian is convinced the woman is actually Yu's secretary, believing she's contacting him right at that moment, which is all the proof he needs to confirm Yu is still alive. His hunch turns out to be correct. The receptionist really is speaking with Yu. When Yu hears a client has brought several divine-grade relics, he agrees to help immediately, even saying clients like that are his favorite kind. A little later, the receptionist comes back out and tells Ju-hyun she's agreed to restore his relics, though first they need to bring them inside for a proper inspection. Ju-hyun is surprised at how quickly things have changed and starts wondering if Yu might actually be inside the building right now. Still, he agrees and hands over the relics. The receptionist carries them to the back room where Yu is waiting. Yu is immediately impressed by the quality of the relics, far better than he expected. Without wasting time, he uses his secret forger's mark to create a B-rank duplicate for every divine-grade relic Ju-hyun brought. His plan is simple. Use restoration protection as an excuse to keep the originals while handing back the fakes to the client. The copies are convincing enough to fool anyone, even replicating the original relic's abilities. But their power only lasts half a day, after which the fake relics become completely useless. This way, the clients never realize they've been scammed. Finally, the receptionist brings the relics back to Ju-hyun, telling him they're actually in far worse condition than initially thought, meaning restoration isn't possible. Ju-hyun looks inside the bag and immediately senses something is wrong. He can tell the relics inside are fakes. Without a second's hesitation, he leaps over the counter and bursts into the back room, where he finds Yu. Yu looks at him but has absolutely no idea who he is. Ju-hyun doesn't even bother explaining. Instead, he pulls out a special relic rope and uses it to tie Yu up. Yu struggles to break free, shouting at Ju-hyun to let him go, but Ju-hyun simply tells him he'll be released if he agrees to make a deal. Yu refuses. Ju-hyun looks at the sorry state Yu has ended up in and recalls that it wasn't always like this. When Yu was younger, he was a talented and promising art student, so impressive that he was offered a scholarship to attend a prestigious university in the United States. But everything changed when someone stole the special technique he'd spent years perfecting. And worst of all, the person who stole it was his own teacher, Jean Richard. Things only got worse for Yu after that. Once expelled from the art world, everyone began treating him as a plagiarist, destroying his reputation and ruining the promising career he once had. With nowhere else to turn, the once prodigious young man eventually began putting his artistic talents to other uses. And it was around that time the relic of forgery somehow ended up in his hands. Ju-hyun realizes Yu has fallen so far that there's no chance he'll willingly agree to a deal. So he decides to try a different approach. He pulls out the relic of Shakespeare's quill, a powerful relic capable of making anything written with it become reality, and uses it to create a terrifying, agonizing torture scenario, then threatens Yu with it. That finally breaks Yu's resistance, and with no other option, he agrees to the deal and signs the contract, handing over all his rights in the process. Still bound on the ground, Yu reviews the contract and immediately realizes it's essentially a slavery contract. Ju-hyun, however, prefers to call it an exclusive contract. Yu starts complaining about how unfair it is, but Ju-hyun points out the agreement clearly states he'll receive $60,000 upfront, plus a commission for every relic he restores. Yu doesn't care about the money, though. He tells Ju-hyun he already promised Taejun he'd become his exclusive restorer. Hearing this, Ju-hyun is genuinely caught off guard, not expecting Taejun to already know about relic restorers. Use the code of Hammurabi to force Yu into accepting the contract for now, but he knows simply binding him legally won't be enough. He still needs Yu to actually trust him if he wants him to use his restoration skills willingly. So he sits down and suggests they get to know each other better. Ju-hyun gives Yu a brief introduction about himself, then asks Yu to share his own past. Instead, Ju-hyun picks up Yu's art book and starts narrating his story himself, explaining that Yu was once a talented art student at an American university, and despite his incredible talent and genuine passion for art, he now barely scrapes by in Los Angeles forging artwork. To make matters worse, he's also known as the Jean Richard imitator. The moment Yu hears that name, he explodes with rage, suddenly throwing a punch at Ju-hyun, who blocks it easily. Yu furiously insists that it was actually Jean who copied him, according to Yu. Jean somehow always knew exactly what was in his mind, able to recreate the exact same pieces Yu had only imagined, which made Yu believe his ideas had somehow been stolen. Julian then offers another possibility, explaining that Jean likely had a relic that let him mimic other people's talent. Yu immediately turns serious, desperately asking if Julian is sure about that. Julian confirms it. With that information, Julian makes Yu an offer. If he can help Yu recover his original painting technique and restore his reputation, Yu will become his exclusive restorer in return. Yu listens to the offer but gives Julian no answer at all. Instead, he immediately runs out of the room. Julian doesn't try to stop him, already knowing exactly where Yu is headed. Shortly after, Yu meets with Taejun and immediately agrees to sign a contract to become his restorer. Though Yu has one condition. He wants the relic Jean Richard used to steal his ideas. Taejun smiles confidently at this and decides to call Jean Richard. Jean picks up and Taejun tells him Yu is trying to claim the relic he used to steal his ideas. Jean simply tells Yu to forget about it since no one will ever believe his story anyway. After Jean hangs up, Taejun explains to Yu that he and Jean are actually quite close, and because of that relationship, he can't simply take the relic away from Jean. Taejun then signals to his thugs who immediately punch Yu square in the face, sending him to the ground. Yu looks at them completely bewildered with no idea what's happening. Taejun then orders his men to keep beating Yu, warning them not to break his arms. But before they can lay another hand on him, Julian suddenly bursts into the room, instantly taking down both thugs with powerful kicks. Yu stares at him in complete shock. And seeing the look on his face, Julian realizes his plan worked exactly as intended. And that's it for today's episode. Comment the word Pinter to let me know you made it all the way to the end. Make sure to watch the full video because it really helps the channel grow. Give it a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos. See you next time. Bye-bye!